When cyber incidents are discussed publicly, they are often described as single moments. A breach occurred, data was stolen, systems went down. This framing makes cyber incidents feel sudden and unpredictable. In reality, most cyber breaches are processes, not events. They unfold over time. They involve multiple stages, decisions, and opportunities for detection. Understanding this anatomy, how breaches typically progress from initial assess to final impact, is essential for thinking clearly about cyber risk in any environment. This section walks you through a typical cyber breach lifecycle, not as a rigid checklist, but as a pattern that appears repeatedly across sectors, technologies, and attack types. Why breaches are rarely instant. One of the most persistent myths about cyber attacks is that attackers break in and immediately cause damage. That does happen occasionally, but in most significant incidents, attackers move deliberately. They explore, they test, they wait. This patience exists because attackers are managing risk. Moving too fast increases the chance of detection. Acting without understanding the environment increases the chance of failure. Taking time allows attackers to choose the moment and method that maximizes impact. As a result, many breaches go unnoticed for extended periods. Systems appear to function normally. Users see nothing unusual. Meanwhile, access is already in place. Reconnaissance and target understanding is the stage one. Most breaches begin long before any system is touched. Attackers first gather information. They look for exposed services, publicly available data, organizational structure, technologies in use, and human workflows. Much of this information is intentionally public. Websites, documentation, job postings, social media, metadata. This reconnaissance allows attackers to reduce uncertainty. They identify likely entry points. They infer which systems matter. They learn how communication normally occurs. This information shapes everything that follows. Importantly, this stage often blends seamlessly with normal internet activity, and it is difficult to distinguish malicious reconnaissance from benign curiosity. Stage 2 is all about initial access. Initial access is the moment when attackers first gain a foothold inside a system or environment. This can happen in many ways: stolen or reused credentials, exploited software vulnerabilities, misconfigured services, phishing or social engineering, compromised third party access. What matters is not the method, but the result: unauthorized access that appears legitimate. In many cases, initial access does not trigger alarms because it resembles normal activity. Valid credentials are used, known systems are accessed, and nothing appears broken. This is one of the most important points to understand. Many breaches begin without any obvious technical failure. Stage 3: establishing persistence. Once access is obtained, attackers focus on staying. Persistence allows them to return even if the original entry point is discovered or closed. This may involve creating new credentials, modifying configurations, installing backdoors, or abusing legitimate features. Persistence is about resilience. Attackers assume access may be lost. They plan for it. They want multiple paths back in. This stage often blends into normal system administration activity, making it difficult to detect without strong monitoring and governance. Stage 4: privilege escalation. Initial access is rarely sufficient to achieve meaningful objectives. Attackers typically begin with limited permissions. To expand control, they attempt to escalate privileges. This may involve exploiting software flaws, misconfigurations, or weak internal controls. Privilege escalation is a critical turning point. Once high level access is obtained, attackers can reach sensitive systems, modify configurations, or disable controls. The potential impact increases significantly. Importantly, this stage often exploits internal trust assumptions rather than external vulnerabilities. Stage 5 is about lateral movement. With expanded access, attackers move laterally. They explore connected systems, they map the internal environment, they identify where valuable data or capabilities reside. They move from system to system, often using legitimate tools and credentials. Lateral movement is rarely fast. Attackers test boundaries, they observe responses, they avoid triggering alerts. Their goal is to blend in while expanding reach. This stage highlights why breaches are rarely contained to a single system. Digital environments are interconnected by design. Stage 6 is about command, control, and coordination. To operate effectively, attackers need communication channels. Command and control mechanisms allow attackers to issue instructions, receive data, and adapt behavior. These channels may be subtle, encrypted, or embedded within normal traffic. From a defensive perspective, this stage is challenging because communication may look routine. The difference lies in intent and not appearance. This is another example of how modern attacks exploit normality. Stage 7 is about objective execution. Only after access, persistence, escalation, and movement do attackers typically execute their primary objective. That objective varies, like data exfiltration, disruption of services, extortion, manipulation of information, long term surveillance. The key point is timing. Attackers choose when to act based on context. They may wait for periods of high activity, distraction, or dependency. They may coordinate actions to maximize pressure or confusion. This is why impact often appears sudden, even though access has existed for a long time. Stage 8, covering tracks and maintaining optionality. After executing objectives, attackers often attempt to hide evidence or maintain future access. Logs may be altered, tools may be removed, access paths may be preserved quietly. In some cases, attackers leave intentionally. In others, they remain. The breach may appear resolved while exposure persists. Why early detection is so difficult? At nearly every stage of this process, attacker activity can resemble legitimate behavior. Credentials are valid, tools are familiar, actions align with expected workflows. This is not accidental. Attackers deliberately exploit the fact that security systems are designed around trust. This is why breaches are often detected late and why detection often occurs after impact rather than before. Human decision points throughout the breach. At every stage, human decisions matter. Configuration choices, access policies, monitoring priorities, response timing, communication decisions. Most breaches are not caused by a single mistake. They result from a chain of reasonable decisions made under constraints. Understanding this helps avoid simplistic blame narratives and supports more realistic improvement. Dwell time and its consequences. The time between initial access and detection, often called dwell time, is one of the most important variables in breach impact. The longer attackers remain undetected, the more options they have. They can escalate, explore, and prepare. Reducing dwell time does not require perfect prevention. It requires visibility, monitoring, and response capability. This critical shift in thinking. Why this anatomy matters. Understanding the anatomy of a cyber breach changes how you interpret incidents. It explains why breaches feel sudden but are rarely instantaneous. It explains why prevention alone is insufficient. It explains why resilience depends on detection, response, and recovery. Most importantly, it reinforces that cyber risk is manageable, even if it's unavoidable. Closing perspective. Cyber breaches are not mysterious. They follow patterns. They exploit structure. They leverage human and technical realities. By understanding how breaches unfold, you gain the ability to reason about risk calmly and realistically. This perspective sets the stage for the rest of the course, where we move from understanding what happens to understanding how to respond.